Hey guys, it's Flare Blitz Banana here. For this month's list video, I decided to do something different. At the time that you're seeing this, I'm just getting out of school for the summer. I've just finished up my freshman year in high school, so why not start a new tradition? From now on, I'll be doing one of these at the end of every school year. I'll say 10 things that I learned from that year that can be taken as advice and not something that I was tested on. So no dumb equations to be found here. I'm making this so that some people can hopefully learn a thing or two from this. This won't apply to everyone, but I tried to make things as general as possible. Also, this video is kind of last minute, so don't expect a ton of editing or visual stuff. I will also be sharing the classes that I enjoyed this year, as well as maybe telling a couple of stories and some stuff. Basically, this list is just for our entertainment purposes and just to say a couple of things, because why not? With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the list. Number 1. Time management is possibly the most important skill you'll need in school. It's incredibly apparent in high school as you'll start finding things that interest you and you'll gain more responsibilities. I can't tell you how many times I've been stressed last minute because I didn't plan right. That's also why so many videos have been late. Number 2. In the beginning of the year, I joined the debate team and I ended up not enjoying it so much. I showed up to one tournament and didn't do so hot. I didn't have a ton of fun doing the debate tournament or going to the meetings. So I stopped. My point is that you shouldn't expect to find the perfect activity right away. It's okay to be adventurous and try new things, just don't expect things to work out perfectly. However, recently I've discovered a different activity, so maybe I'll enjoy that, who knows. Number 3. Teachers have other classes to take care of. In middle school, all your main teachers had one subject that they had to worry about. The same thing they taught you, they taught to 100 other kids, so it's pretty easy for them to keep track of things and help you a lot. But in high school, things aren't like that. Your English teacher may also teach world mythology, or your science teacher may teach for a grade up as well. And while I'm sure everyone knew that you would get less help in high school compared to middle school, it should be noted that there is a good reason for this, and that you will have to manage things on your own. Number 4. At least for freshman year at my school, things are actually a bit easier than middle school. That is until you get to the dreaded third trimester. The third trimester is tough for a number of reasons. Both students and teachers are sick of being at school and just can't wait for summer. Students become more obnoxious and teachers become more strict. Also, they save the toughest stuff for the end of the year. Now, I get that they want a steady progression of difficulty, but why save the hard stuff for the end when everyone's worn out? If it were up to me, the harder stuff would be in the middle of the year. That way, everyone's used to school again, but we wouldn't all be tired out. Number 5. Make friends. Alright, now I'm starting to sound like a mom, but in all seriousness, most high schools are pretty big, and chances are you won't be in the same class as your friends from previous years. Because of this, it's important to try to meet new people. It's nice to have a buddy to do group projects with or even copy off of. Okay, maybe not that one. I've never done that. Okay, once! But I missed a day. Jeez. Okay, maybe a little more than once. Number 6. People change. A lot. The same person you knew a year or two ago could be completely different. There was a kid I was best buddies with in elementary school that was pretty much a complete goody two-shoes, but this year he actually started doing some illegal stuff. In high school, some kids do a 180, so don't be surprised when some of your friends start to change. Number 7. Serious things will happen. There's a lot of stereotypes about teens constantly getting into trouble and doing all sorts of nasty things. And while those are mostly exaggerations, stereotypes come from some truth. And messed up stuff does happen in school. One time I walked into a bathroom and got a fresh scent of cigarettes. And about a month ago there was a shooting threat at our rival school. Sure, police and school staff are cracking down on it, but crime in schools still exists. However, there's something important to keep in mind about this. The people who do things like this do it to look cool or to impress other people. But in reality, they'll only impress a small group of people. Everyone else will shame them for doing things like that. So just know that doing stuff like that could actually make you less popular, along with many worse consequences. And I'm not trying to scare anyone. You'll almost never run into these things. And when they do happen, there's professionals there to protect you and your classmates. Number 8. At least at my school, cheating is very serious. We're talking suspension for a single act of cheating, no matter how minute it is. Apparently there was some huge cheating scandal last year on a giant test, and now the staff is all paranoid that we're all gonna cheat. Especially my geometry teacher. But we'll get to her in a bit. Basically, don't try to cheat. You'll probably get caught and the punishments are worse than ever these days. Number 9. Not all teachers are great. To me, there are 2 main attributes to a teacher. Skill of teaching and kindness. You could have a teacher who's great at teaching and a good person, or you could have a teacher who's a good person but terrible at teaching. or any of the combinations, or somewhere in between. I think you get the point. But the worst part is that you could end up doing bad in a class just because the teacher refused to explain something to you. You know who you are, geometry teacher. Number 10. Ladies and gentlemen, we've saved my most hated thing for last. Yay! Freshmen get pushed around a lot. And I mean a lot. Being the new guys, we're perfect targets for upperclassmen. It's never anything serious, but they still mess with us. And the treatments from upperclassmen are never that bad, at least in my school. A lot of guys in grades above me are pretty cool. The Spicemen are all a grade above me, and we're still good friends, although I'm technically older than Rusty Goomba, but whatever. The real issue, though, at least in my school, is the freaking rules against freshmen. Like school rules, made by the teachers. Freshmen can be held in lunch if a teacher chooses, and this applies only to freshmen. Why? Also, freshmen aren't allowed on the benches. I look pretty older, so I can at least get away with it. Freshmen aren't allowed to leave the building. But the one advantage to being a freshman is the awesome trip at the end of the year to the Valley Fair amusement park. Finally, some sort of advantage to being a freshman. Let's go have some, and it's boring. Also, there's a freaking worksheet for this? What? No one told me? Or maybe I was just distracted with playing Pokemon Showdown during class when the teacher was explaining it. I don't know. Alright, so now it's time for me to rant about my classes. I've pre-ranked them in order from least favorite to favorite. I've decided to improvise this part, but I'll try to keep each class under a minute to each to save time. Also, I had 8 classes this year, and I'll be addressing all of them. Number 8, geometry. Oh my god, the teacher. Okay, so I've never been good at math, but this took the cake. Geometry, on its own, the subject is pretty tough. Weird shapes and formulas and stuff. Most of it doesn't even make sense. But all of that stuff gets amplified when you have a bad teacher. Like, seriously, no one liked this teacher. She would hand out worksheet after worksheet and not give students any breaks. It was complete madness. She wasn't even that good at teaching either. And whenever someone would ask a question, she would explain it in the exact same way she had done before and not try anything different. Just wouldn't put any effort into explaining it. How are we supposed to learn when you're refusing to teach methods that work? Whatever. I'm gonna stop talking about it before I have a mental breakdown. Alright, so at number 7, it's physical science. And this class, this is kind of a weird one. The teacher wasn't a terrible person, but he wasn't so great at teaching. He wouldn't tell us things a lot. And also our class was kind of obnoxious, especially in the 3rd trimester. There was a lot of guys that wouldn't be quiet, and he was having a hard time with them. He didn't know how to make sure that we understood things. He just kind of like, here's this, and sometimes he wouldn't even say here's this. He wouldn't say anything. He's just, yeah. But it wasn't so bad. Every once in a while he'd do something right, so yeah. That's it for the classes I despise, though. Okay, coming in at number 6 is Spanish. Even though this class is at number 6, it was still pretty great, because we had a teacher who was fresh out of college, and was pretty lenient with us a lot. Honestly, the only reason why it's this low is just because it's Spanish. It was really stressful trying to memorize all of the words, but at least our teacher did a good job of teaching it. That being said, I'd oftentimes spend a lot of time stressing out over this class. Not thinking about, oh, how am I going to memorize all these words in this short amount of time? Because sometimes the other teachers just didn't do a great job with planning, and all the teachers have to have the same schedule. And apparently the other Spanish teachers are kind of jerks and like to make things as difficult for us as possible. Our Spanish teacher wasn't like this, but she was outnumbered 1 to 2, so she didn't have too much of a say. Number 5 is social studies. Social studies, it was about average for me. My teacher was pretty nice. Sometimes he'd get a bit mad, but usually he was a cool guy. And the class itself wasn't too challenging. Just read your book, and yeah, it's not that bad. So, yeah. That's all I have to say. Next. Number 4 is Phi Ed. So, as a lot of you guys probably guessed, I'm not exactly the most athletic person. So why am I putting Phi Ed so high? Well, I may or may not have gotten bronchiolitis halfway through the 1st trimester, which is when I had this class. So I kinda got out of the tough stuff like the mile run and sit-up tests and all of that. Oh, and for those of you who don't know what bronchiolitis is, it's like bronchitis, but less severe and temporary, so don't worry, I'm fine now. Also, I had a lot of friends in that class, so when things got tough for us nerds, we at least had each other. And it's not like when I had to do stuff, it was that challenging, because our coach was a pretty nice guy. And the other kids in that class weren't jerks. Of course, we had plenty of jocks in the class, but they weren't overly aggressive or competitive and stuff. They were nice, and they were just there to have fun. So number 3, we have English. Honestly, this should be higher, but my class in the 3rd trimester was bad. Not my teacher, wasn't my teacher's fault at all, but my classmates were just awful. They would not shut up. You can ask Scrappy Wheels about it. He hated them too. And they ended up getting us in quite a bit of trouble. During a movie, normal people would just sit there quietly and watch it. These guys would be yakking like crazy. It was so loud, and it was only a group of 5 to 6 of them. And yet they sounded like an entire class on their own. Oh, so ridiculous. But other than that, the class was awesome. Our teacher, I'm not going to say his real name, but we'll just go with Mr. G. He was the weirdest teacher I've ever had. And that's a good thing. When you have a weird teacher who's not like super weird, who's just kind of funny and stuff, that's a good time. Just to give you an example, let me tell you a funny story about Mr. G. So my friends Nick and Gage were playing around, and Mr. G has these sticks he uses to press the buttons on the projector because he's pretty short. So Nick and Gage took the sticks and they started sword fighting with each other. Well, Nick got Mr. G's chair and got in it and kind of pretended like it was a horse or something and kind of started sword fighting Gage and stuff like that. Well, then out of nowhere, this guy comes out and tackles Nick to the ground and starts going, "Get him, Gage, get him!" And we realize it was Mr. G who tackled Nick. So we're just all in shock that a teacher would do that. And honestly, you know, he didn't hurt Nick or anything. Nick was just fine. No one was hurt. And then after Mr. G got off him, one of my classmates said to me, "You know, I'd normally be surprised about a teacher doing this, but it's Mr. G, so you kind of got to expect it." My second favorite class of the year was mobile app design. This class was great. So basically, the objective of this class was to learn how to code mobile games and stuff like that. Honestly, none of us learned a thing. There was just some code, and that we had to just copy it down into the coding system. Now, of course, it was a little bit challenging because we couldn't get things perfectly right. There were plenty of errors that we had to fix, but honestly, most of the class is just us goofing around and looking up Pingu memes. Eventually, we did kind of fall behind and had to catch up quick. It wasn't too difficult because our teacher was pretty nice. And my favorite class of the whole year was Basic Computer Skills. By far the easiest class of the whole year. I once finished an entire unit in one day. And the teacher was pretty good too. He was also the same teacher from mobile app design, and he's a pretty lenient guy. It honestly got to the point where that class pretty much just became a do whatever you want class for me since I was so far ahead. Other kids were doing poor in the class, but that's only because they were chatting and being obnoxious. But for me, it was nothing but to get extra homework done and play Showdown, and that's really all that matters.